Yep. Okay, so this time it's recording from the right channel. We can go ahead and get started. I received a lot of email messages, so most of you I think got the YouTube and also the Shutterfly accounts set up. Got pictures uploaded and shared them with me, so that's all good. And what we'll do today is to focus on software, different types of software that can do different types of work or editing with your multimedia content. I just created this ISO, last night or early this morning. So it includes, all the things or most of the things that I need to illustrate with, this particular Linux distribution. Most of you probably won't switch to Linux just because, you have to take this class or create content. But I can tell you it's pretty easy. The way I start this class is, I put an SD card into the SD card slot, and that's it. That's all I need to do to switch to Linux without touching anything on the hard drive. In other words, this computer still has Windows and everything else that it used to have, but I just rebooted it using either a DVD or a SD card or a USB thumb drive, and I can switch to Linux just for whatever amount I wanted to switch. So it's not as difficult as it seems to be. You don't have to install it yourself. It's pre-installed with all the applications already included. And it can also read the content on your original hard drive. So that's the nice part about it. So we'll go ahead and look at some of these software, which I think some of you will find useful. We'll just go by alphabetical order here. The first one is called Audacity, A-U-D-A-C-I-T-Y. Now Audacity is kind of it's interesting because it's an open source software, which means it is free to you. You can download and install it on as many computers as you want, and you won't be charged any fees. So that's nice because you can try it out, and if you decide this is not what I want a studio quality sound editor, hey, go ahead and pay and get a better one. But if you're not willing to pay that much money, this is not bad. It can get a lot of things done. So what I'll do is I'm going to just do a little bit of recording first, and I can record from the same channel that my screen recorder is recording. So it doesn't cause any conflicts, and it's recording quote unquote in stereo, but my microphone is only mono, so it's actually recording in mono at this point. So that's enough of a clip. So I'll just go ahead and click the stop. Actually, I take it back. I want to do a little bit more. So let me just record the whole thing again. In this time, I will leave some silence ahead of time, like leave maybe 5 seconds of silence, so I can tell you how to denoise your audio samples. Okay, that's 5 seconds of silence, and now I can start to actually talk about things. And there's a really significant background hum that you don't realize until it is gone. Because when it's gone, you just hear the room being completely silent. A lot of times when you do recording, you will encounter similar problems. Okay, the environment that you're recording in may have certain types of background noise, from machines and electrical noise and stuff like that. So let me stop the recorder right now, and I can play back. And to do that, I need to turn on these fancy equipment, because this room has actual AV equipment. Let me see if that works. Nope, not yet. Alright, so what do I need to do here? Microphone, I don't have a microphone. Computer volume. Okay, so that's that. Alright, let's try that again. Now with Audacity, you can also use the mouse pointer to start, to basically indicate where the cursor is, so you can start playing back from that location. Nope. It's still not working. I must be missing something here. Let's check the computer itself. It's outputting to the right channel.
Are the speakers on? Are the speakers on?
Yeah, the speakers are on. I just made a poo-poo here. I I did not tell the computer to output to the right channel because it has two devices. This one is actually an output device too. There's a little headphone that I can plug in to do the monitoring. There you go. And let me crank it up a little bit. Okay, it's kind of faint, I think it has to do with, I did not, crank up the gain of the mic. All right. So what I can show you is this. I can go here, which is basically just the background noise. I can select it, and then I can go to, I think, effect. There's a noise handling part of it. Analyze. Silence finder. No. Okay, I have to look closely here. Noise removal, that's it. So I can click noise removal, and there are two steps to noise removing. The first step is to tell the computer what is considered noise. I have just selected a portion that is completely silenced other than the noise, so I can say get noise profile because that portion is already sampled. The first part is already done, and then what I can do next is to select the entire clip. So I can go to edit and say select all, go back to effect, and then go back to noise removal. Now I'm ready to perform step 2. So step 2 is already configured, and I can click OK, and you can see how much it cleans up the signal. Okay. Now, if you're not an audiophile, it may not, you may not notice a whole lot. But if you're an audiophile, you may notice, that it actually works fairly well, removing, the background hum in this room. So this is really useful. You can actually use a camcorder and record whatever you want to record. You can use a software to separate it back into the channels, like the audio has its own channel, and so on and so forth. And then you can use this to process the audio part of your video, and then reintegrate it back into the movie later on. So this is a pretty nifty tool. Yep.
I use it a lot, so you gotta make sure you be careful what form you export the music into. If you export it into MP3, it comes up as a rather large MP3 file.
Yep. Or if you can encode it into WAV file.
Yeah, WAV will be a lot
smaller. WAV is actually bigger. I think MP3 is smaller.
When that one comes out, it comes out as 50 megabytes in MP3 file.
I guess it depends on your bit rate too. So you have to select your bit rate when you export to MP3. MP3 has different bit rates, and that's why it's difficult to say whether it's going to be a large file or a small one. Most people can live with 128 kilobits per second. I can see some cringes here. You're like, yeah, it depends on the music that you're listening to. Certain music would not work well with 128 kilobits per second. That's basically the bit rate. Okay, so let me go back and just kind of roll back a little bit about sound encoding. This class, I cannot focus too much on sound encoding, but basically, okay, let me switch to a website here. Switch to Chrome. Okay, sound file. There are different types of sound audio file formats. And Audacity can export and read different types of file formats too. The most important part is to understand the 3 different types here. One is called uncompressed. Now you don't really want to deal with uncompressed because they will create huge files. The only time you have uncompressed audio files is when you buy a CD from a store, then it is uncompressed. They are sampled at least 16 bits per sample, and I think it's at 44 kilohertz, that's the sampling rate. I can go over those concepts, just a little bit in this class, so you guys, can choose, the correct, the appropriate settings for yourselves. I will go to, where's my mouse pad? I don't have mouse pad anymore. Oh, right there. All right, so I'm just using this as a whiteboard. There are several factors you have to consider when you consider your audio files. The first one is called bits per sample. Now, without really going into a lot of computer science stuff, what is digitization and stuff like that, the more bits per sample, the truer the sound, will become encoded and recorded. So what you want to do is to say, 8 bits is good for phone quality recording, which is not bad. Okay, you can still record, voices and most other types of sounds that you encounter in real life. But if you want any type of music, 16 bits is good for that. It's good for music and high quality recording. Okay, so that's the number of bits per sample. It determines how many levels or how many discrete levels of sound can be recorded per unit of time. The second factor you have to consider is samples per second, which is also called the sampling rate. Sampling rate. Now with this one, it varies a lot depending on what you want to do with your recording. 8 kilohertz or 8,000 hertz or 8,000 samples per second is really low quality. That's basically what you get when you talk on the cell phone. It's 8,000 samples per second. It's okay, you can probably hear what the other person has to say, but if you try to encode music using this type of sampling rate, it comes out really crappy. It's just not appropriate for high quality sampling. And then you can go all the way, the top one is 44,100 hertz, which is also samples per second. That's good for music. All right. Are we doing okay so far at this point? So if you're recording, at 16 bits per sample, and then at the maximum of 44,100 hertz per hertz, which is per second, you are recording a lot of bytes per second, because what we are talking about here is 2 channels for stereo. So if you're recording for CD quality, which has no compression whatsoever, no encoding, no compression, we are talking about 2 bytes. Because 16-bit has 2 bytes, 1 byte has 8 bits. We are talking about 2 channels. We are talking about 44,100 samples per second. So this is the number of bytes per second that you need to store onto a hard drive. Okay, so that number turns out to be, that's about 16 times 4, 44,000. So that would make it. I'm just lazy. I will use a calculator. I don't have a calculator tool here. That's okay. I can use a really crude calculator. 2 times 2 times 44,100. So we come up with this number of bytes per second. Okay, so that's 176,400. 176,400 bytes per second. So for every second, you need to store approximately 180 kilobytes. That's a lot of storage for only 1 second. So if you want to record, let's say 15 minutes worth of stuff, then you have to multiply this by 15 minutes. So you have to say 176,400. There are 60 seconds to a minute, and I said 15 seconds. So we're talking about this number of bytes. So let's copy, and we can paste it here. That's the number of bytes you need for 15 minutes of recording. And you can count the zeros. So up to here, that's 1,000. Up to here is mega. So this is 100 and close to 160 megabytes for 15 minutes of audio recording. That's a lot of storage. Okay? So if you record an hour, how much storage is it going to take up? 600. Approximately 600 megabytes. And that's the capacity of an audio CD. Okay, when you purchase an audio CD, a recordable one, if it rates it as 650 megabytes, it's only good for 1 hour of audio recording at the highest quality setting. Okay, So you probably don't want to use this type of format all the time, even though it is one of the best formats from the perspective of preserving the content. So getting back to this page here, so we just talked about uncompressed audio formats. And then with the other two, one is called lossless compressed audio format, and the other one is called lossy compressed audio formats. The first one, the lossless one, means you are decreasing the size of the file, but without sacrificing the quality of the sound. In other words, you're using less storage, but you're still getting the same quality as the first one. So that's good, but in this case, the compression is typically only 2:1. In other words, you can compress 650 megabytes into 325 megabytes or so and still preserve exactly the same quality of sound. The last one is interesting because when you are ready to sacrifice a little bit of your sound quality, then it becomes very interesting because now it depends on the bit rate. In other words, how much do you want to compress? If you want to compress a lot, you will lose more quality. If you don't want to compress as much, then you can preserve more quality. So you have a trade-off with the third option. With the third option, we also have a list of formats here. Some of these are more popular, and other ones are not nearly as popular. The Wave is one of the most popular ones because it came out first. When Windows first came out, everything was in WAV format, but it's actually misleading because when you have a file extension of WAV, the actual encoding can be many different. It can select from many different encoding types. So that's why it's not really accurate when we say it's a WAV file. But what kind of WAV file are we talking about? WMA is a later Microsoft format. It also has a lot of subformats inside it. So when you talk about WMA or Windows Media Audio format, it as subcategories, it actually could include the lossless compressed format and also the lossy compressed formats. And within the lossy ones, it also has subcategories. So this is actually kind of complex when we talk about this kind of thing. RA and RM, real audio, they're not really used that much anymore. OGG it stands for OGG. It's an open source format, and a lot of open source software such as Audacity they all have native support of OGG formats. MP3 we all know that already. It's MPEG Layer 3 audio. It's the most common one, but it may not be the highest quality. Some people have done some research. They compress files, one into MP3 format and another one into the OGG format to the same size. The one that is compressed to OGG format at exactly the same size actually has better quality. So the compression algorithm actually works better and is also open source, but there are other reasons why it is not as popular as MP3. Going up here, we have FLAC. FLAC is interesting because it's a lossless audio codec. Codec stands for coding and decoding. So that's basically a compression method, and it's lossless. And then when you go all the way up, for those of you who have Apple computers, you have AIFF and also AAC files. You get most of those files from iTunes. Okay? Because I don't think iTunes support MP3. Does it support MP3? No? Okay. There you have it. Now Amazon, sells music too, and they only sell MP3 non-DRM MP3 files. So that's really nice because you can easily move the files from one computer to another computer and still be able to play it. DRM stands for Digital Right Management. It's the big labels trying to make sure that you can only play music on your own devices and your friends cannot borrow your music, and put it onto their devices and play the music on their devices. And it works to a certain extent. Okay, yep, go ahead.
So iTunes has come out with something they call the cloud that
The cloud
pay
player.
like $25 a month and put it on other devices. Put your music that you have through iTunes on other devices.
Right, so they can manage it too. So it's still a management mechanism. You're not free to redistribute the music to all your friends, So it's like an MP3 file. All right. So these are, this part is really just a quick, introduction to, audio file formats. And then what we'll do is we'll go back to Audacity. So let's just say that I'm ready to export, only a part of my recording. So what I can do is to zoom out a little bit so I can now see the entire recording. And by the way, I use exactly this software to record music from VHS tapes. Because we have a whole collection of Wiggles when my kids were younger. Yeah. The people who are dancing, we have like 4 Australian dads, dancing to the music and singing at the same time. So but the music was really great. My kids really liked the music, but we can't really play the video, the VHS, in our cars because I didn't have a video player in my car. So what I did was I recorded, I used a cable going from my VHS VHS tape player and hook it up to the computer, and I digitized the music. And then I use Audacity to separate the tracks, so I can actually extract individual tracks and cut out the conversations and stuff like that, and put it onto an actual CD so I can play it in the car. So it's really quite useful. The next thing I want to do with something like this is maybe I'll just select the whole thing, and then I can go to Effect again, and this time I'll go to Normalize. And what that does is, what Normalize would do is to amplify the sound recording to the point where it is just before it starts to clip. In other words, we are not exceeding the envelope on the top and the bottom, to make sure it's not clipping. Clipping is really bad because it affects the quality of the sound, very significantly. So this is right before it starts to clip, but it is also kind of more magnified, or it's amplified. So I can go to a particular place and start to play again. Okay, that's 5 seconds of silence. And now Smart can actually talk about things, and there's a really significant fact. So I have just denoised and amplified it, exactly to the point before it starts to clip, which is the best point of amplification. And now I'm ready to save it. Now, when you save something in Audacity, you can just go ahead and select a portion. You don't have to save the entire thing. You can select a portion, go to File, and then go to Export Selection. And now you can specify a file that you want to export to. You can also see that it has different types of file formats supported. You can see some of these names we have just mentioned: AIFF for Apple, WAV for Microsoft, OGG for Biz. OGG, the word OGG actually only mentions what we call the container of multimedia content. It doesn't really specify the format. So OGG Vorbiz, VORBIS, is actually the indication that we are saving an audio file with a certain type of compression. You can save it to the other types of formats too. WMA version 2, because there are multiple versions of WMA, and you can see MP3 is also here, right here. So this is a really nice tool because it allows you to process the audio content in any way you want, and then also export it back in a variety of formats. Yep.
The most universal one to maybe use would be WAV, so that you can sure that anybody can look at it.
Yes.
Or listen to it.
Yeah, WAV would be the most universal one, but it's also the largest one because it's when we use you can also see here it's signed 16-bit PCM. PCM stands for post code modulation, which basically implies it is not compressed whatsoever. So it will give you the most truthful representation, but at the same time it's also the largest of all the formats. So it's for for DJs and people who actually have to work with the actual content of music, that probably is the best option. WAV is probably the best option because you're not losing anything. But for other people who can afford to lose some of the quality to trade it for size, some of the other options may be better. That's a good point. Any other questions? Now, if I remember correctly, you are going to want to become a audio engineer?
Yeah.
A recording engineer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what do you think of this?
Audacity, I'm a little bit familiar.
Well, considering you don't have to pay for it,
Yeah.
you know, I don't have anything to complain, you know, since it's
Yeah.
free.
Yeah, it's really.
Yeah, it's probably not as capable as some of the more professional software, or doesn't
Yeah.
have the scripting ability to make things really easy. But for a class project like this, you know, I think
it's perfect.
it'll be fine, right?
Yeah.
But what about the file formats? You know, what do you use, you know, in industry for these file formats? Wave.
Wave, MP3s, sometimes IFF,
Okay.
depending on, you know, and, yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's just say that I want to export this one as MP3. I'll just go ahead and specify a name. I can say, you know, sample.mp3, and then click save. And then it will ask me about all the other information that I need when I save it as an MP3 file. When you save it as a WAV file, you won't get this dialog box because a WAV file does not store this type of information. But when you store it when you save it as an MP3 file, it asks you for, you know, artist name, track title, and so on and so forth. You don't have to specify it if you don't if you don't feel like it. You don't have to, you know, put in these tags. You don't have to put in your genre or your template. So you can just go ahead and you can look at the templates. We don't have any templates here, so we don't have to, there's nothing to load. So we can click OK. I don't know exactly what is the default bit rate that you save to, but I will bet you it's one of the options. You can actually go to Edit, Preferences, and go to Recording, Import, Export. Doesn't show the quality. There we go. So this is the default sampling rate is 44,100, and the default sample format is 32-bit, you know, float, which is a lot. You know, it takes up even more space than 16-bit signed integers. So are there any questions at this point about, you know, using Audacity?
How do you get it from there, from this point, into your video?
Well, that's the last part. The
Okay.
video editor is really the very, very last part, because, you know, you need to have your pictures already processed. Okay, you need to crop, you need to sharpen, you know, turn it into black and white and whatnot. So you need to get all those things done. You have to process your audio source, you know, source. So if you have, you know, like a specific music that you want to add to, let's say, a wedding, you know, ceremony, you can, you know, pre-process, you know, the audio content, you know, and stuff like that. So you need to have everything ready before you get to the last point to deal with the actual video production. All right. So this is Audacity. For those of you who like to, you know, play different types of instruments and, you know, have your one-man band or one-woman band, you know, type of a recording, Audacity can do it too. Because what you can do is to play back, you know, existing tracks while recording the next one, and it will time sync it. So you can basically play the piano, you know, first, okay, record that particular track, and then you can play, let's say, a flute next. You can, you know, play a violin next, and then you can sing as the last track. And Audacity allows you to combine all the different tracks and allow you to kind of change, you know, the amplification of the different channels. So the output, you know, can be very impressive, and you can do it all by yourself as one single person. As long as you can keep the beat, you know, and make sure that the music of different tracks, you know, sync. Yeah, it's really quite interesting. All right, so this is, you know, one tool that you can use for editing sound. I'll just go ahead and get out of this software. The next one, if I go to here, is MuseScore. Okay, last time I was trying to show you guys MuseScore, but I did not have it installed, and this time it is installed, and that's nice. Now MuseScore, if you just look at the opening, you know, screen here, that's what it is. It's basically a music score editing software. If you want to transcribe, you know, music into, you know, the score format, this is a nice tool to do it. Okay, it has all the nice all the nice utility to do everything that you need to do. But the nicest part about this software is it allows you to connect with the community, which means you can download scores already entered, by other people, and who are willing to share the scores that they already have entered. So before we go any further, I will show you, what you can do with this. You can just go ahead and start, playing the music. And I'm not hearing anything. All right, so why is it not? Let's take a look at preferences. I/O, use internal synthesizer. Okay, got it saved, and let's go ahead and get it restarted. Nope, still not making any sounds. There we go. So that's, music. But what you can also do is to go to File, and you can actually play that music and save it into an audio file. So in this case, you can save as. And, nope. You can save it into WAV audio or FLAC audio or Orbis audio. In other words, using the last 3 options, when you save, you can save it into a format that a video editor can import. You can also edit it after the fact using Audacity. Okay, are we doing okay so far? In other words, this is a nice tool to convert score into music that you can actually use in your project. Now, who has time to input all that score? Well, maybe you have time, but maybe you don't have the time. So what you can do is to connect with the community. Just click that link, and you can see that. Okay, let me see if I can make this part a little bit bigger. And you can see all of these scores already entered by other people. Okay, well, Christmas is a little bit far away, and I cannot do anything about that. Let's try this one. That's supposed to be a chorus, a sound effect called chorus. Family Guy. Okay, let's try that. So there we have it. So you have a lot of these songs and existing scores to choose from if you want to integrate some music into your actual production. What you can also look into is you can print out the score, and I think everything that is available is already in the Creative Commons license. Do you guys still remember when we talk about the Creative Commons license? Which means, if you don't alter the content and claim that you made it, you can use it. Okay, so this is great, great stuff that you can actually use in your final project for this class. Are there any questions about MuseScore? Go ahead.
download the music score.
Yep.
So, what's the URL to download the music score?
It's built into the software. That's the nice part. The really nice part about it is the community is actually a part of the software itself. So as long as you have the software and you have internet connectivity, you can just go to the community display, which is the right-hand side, and use it to search through the music that is already available at this point. Now you can also, use a web browser in general. Use a web browser, look up MuseScore, and look up Creative Commons. And this is from the MuseScore website itself. Has issues. Basically talks about share score online. Go to MuseScore. And I think that gives you the instructions of how to do it. And you can go to this website here. So this is a centralized website. You can see how much stuff is already available. And you guys see here on the right-hand side, filter by instrument, number of instruments, genre, and so on and so forth. That's already online. That stuff is online already. I can just give it a try here. Yep, go ahead.
May I hear the fanfaria?
Sorry?
May I hear the fanfaria, what that sounds like?
This one?
Yes.
All right, so let's go ahead and click here. So it shows you, and it has a play button here. Excuse me. So that's a little bit too loud. But basically, that's you can sample the music before you download the score, and once you download the score, you can play it locally with MuseScore.
Okay.
Yep. So I think this gives you a really good variety of music that you can use in your final project, because you can. I think you can spend like a day at the website.
But it's all classical stuff, huh?
It has classical stuff. It has
was
contemporary. If you go through the filter here, they have all these different genres.
Oh.
They have rock. I mean, if you like rock, I'm not a rock kind of person, but so maybe you guys know more about this than I do. But they do have rock, and they have traditional, folk, inspirational, film. Okay, so if you like soundtracks and stuff like that, they also have that.
Okay.
All right, so I think this is a good resource, because there's a lot of stuff here. On the other hand, if classical music and even this kind of thing is not your cup of tea, and you like to have something that's a little bit more kind of, let's say, European and modern, you can also use another program. Let me close MuseScore first, so I don't have too many programs loaded at the same time. So close without saving. And we'll go to another program called LMMS, which is already installed, but it doesn't show here, so I have to start it up from a command line interface here. LMMS. Now LMMS gives you an entirely different interface. You can actually edit music as well. This one is more intended for kind of dance beat, European, type of music. But you can use it for, just about anything too. I can go to Project and go to Open. I know it has its own projects, so let me see if I can find, sample projects here. So go back to Root. This is something that I have to do, but when you install the software in Windows, you don't have to do this sort of thing. So it's a whole lot easier if you do it in Windows. Go to LMMS, Projects, Demos, and now we have a lot of demos. And once again, I believe all of these demos are also, using the Creative Commons license, which means, if you want to integrate it into your, video project, you can go ahead and use it. I really don't think a whole lot of you will be interested in this type of music, but we'll give it a try. And play. Okay, too loud. Better. Turn it down a little bit. Okay, where is it? Play. So that's the kind of dance floor music. So this particular software has a lot of people using it for this type of music. It's trance or Eurobeat, that sort of music. So if that's your cup of tea, this software may be able to get the music that you need instead of using MuseScore. MuseScore is more classical, even rock, more traditional type of music. This one leans more to the 16-beat kind of genre. Different genre, but nonetheless, it is still a useful tool if you want to integrate music into your content. Any questions? No questions? If you look up LMMS and look up your music to download, you will also find a variety of music you can download. The nice thing about LMMS, which actually stands for Linux something music system, okay? But you don't need Linux to run it. Okay, you can actually download this in Windows and run it in Windows. The nice part about this is you can also download MIDI files, MIDI files. So let's go ahead and look up your MIDI files online. So you can look up your MIDI, and once again go to freemidi.org, and we'll go ahead and look up. Let's pick something. You guys pick.
Skyfall at Delhi.
Which one? Skyfall? This one?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll go ahead
And
and.
it's something I haven't heard of before.
Okay, well, you can also sample first. Okay, so we can go ahead and sample it. Oh, that's a Bond theme music, I guess. Okay, now that's basically YouTube. You don't want to download something from YouTube because most of that stuff is actually licensed. So what you want to do in this case is to download free music. Download here. Okay. How do I download? I would imagine it's this link here. There we go. It actually downloaded already. It's down here. I have to figure out, it's probably my download folder. So what I can do now is I can go back to LMMS, go to project, and I can say import, go to my download folder, locate the MIDI file. I even have a Wham! Last Christmas, it's MIDI file. We can try that one. I think Christmas is close enough that we can do this. If someone is objecting that I use Christmas because it's religious, I can stop using it. That's okay. All right, so this is that the right project? Nope, that's the other one. What happened to the import? You know what? I think I know what happened to the import. It actually imported to this part here. In other words, it did not close the previous project. Let me close that first. Close. Nope, doesn't have close. Close without saving. Open it again. Oh, I forgot I cannot open it like this. There we go. Project, import. Go back to my downloads folder. Alright, let's see whether that works. Yeah. It doesn't work because I have not set up the right sound fonts, so it doesn't work. With MIDI settings, I need to set up a default sound font, which means it knows how to map the MIDI instruments to the correct source of MIDI instruments on the computer itself. But once I get that part done, it will work correctly. Do you guys want me to see me how?
Please.
Okay, so let's go to project, go to settings, and then we go to MIDI settings. There we go. We go to the folder settings. Basically it's called paths, and we have to look into the plugins sound font file. So we have to locate the sound font, go to user. Now this part is, yours will be different because you will be using Windows and the paths will be set up differently. And I have to remember the names of the sound font. Let's see, sounds. And I think the largest one is the one that I want to use. One thing that I don't like about LMMS is when you change the settings, you have to close it and then start it up again for the new settings to become effective. Okay. On the other hand, it seems to remember, I have to import it. Project, import, and then we go to the downloads folder.
Way over my head.
If we need your help working on the projects, when and where do we get that?
I have office hours right after the class, so we can do it right afterwards.
Okay.
The lab may not have the software installed, so I have to look into that portion too. Is how do we get the software, so that you guys can work with it.
Right.
So that's not bad. So that's not too bad. I mean, it's okay for certain purposes. But the nice thing is, you have the ability to import what we call MIDI files, M-I-D-I, MIDI files. MIDI stands for some kind of interface for musical instruments. So if you have a keyboard or some other types of instruments, you can use it as a MIDI output. It's kind of like a keyboard, kind of like USB for musicians. So you can plug it in, plug in the keyboard to what we call a synthesizer, and then you can have the synthesizer to actually create the sound that you want for different types of music. The ability to import MIDI, makes the LMMS capable of playing a lot more files than MuseScore. MuseScore can open its own type of file format, in the score format. But LMMS can open up MIDI files, and there are a lot of MIDI files out there. Everything from classic tunes and all the way to who knows what. Are we doing okay so far? I mean, this is an overview. Remember, it's an overview to show you guys what can be done, what type of resources are available. So it's kind of up to you to decide, what you want to do with the music content. So I'm going to move on because, I don't want to just talk about the music part because we still have to deal with the photo editing part as well. So let's close this one and we'll move on to the next software. I can go to, I'm pretty much done with this one. The only one that I want to show but I cannot show yet is called the OpenShot Video Editor. This one is kind of controversial for a class like this because you need to have Linux to run it. On the other hand, I can give you a DVD that you can take home and you can just put it onto your CD tray, restart the computer, and then you can run Linux with all these tools already pre-installed. Okay, so that may be an attractive solution too, because you don't have to go out and download all the different software and install it. It's already pre-installed onto a DVD, and and I know what type of environment you'll be using. So when you have questions, I can help you, easily in that case. If you install the software individually onto your own computer, then a lot of stuff depends on the settings on your computer and stuff like that, and I may not be able to help as much, in that case. So we'll talk about this software OpenShot, but only after we talk about all the other graphics programs that I also want to talk about. The first one I want to talk about is the GNU image manipulation program, which is also called the GIMP. Has a very cute logo, and this is it. The GIMP, it's basically you can call it Photoshop for the budget limited ones. Okay, if you don't have a lot of money to spend, and you also don't have a lot of disk storage to put, to install Photoshop, the GIMP requires, very little space, a few hundred megabytes, at the most, and it can do just about anything that you want to do with Photoshop. For most of us, okay. If you want to create content for a magazine or for poster size professional prints, I would still point you to Photoshop, because Photoshop definitely has more tools and is more professional. But for everything else, I think the GIMP, between the GIMP and some of the other tools that I will talk about, is already good enough. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and I will show some of the things you can do with the GIMP. So what we'll do is we'll go to Creative Commons Pictures, Photographs. Okay. And we go to Images. So even Flickr is starting to have Creative Commons photos, which means those photos you can actually download and utilize it in your own projects, as long as
give them credit.
Yep, you give them credit. You don't claim that you made the pictures, and some of the times you cannot make changes to the pictures and then use the modified version. You have to use the unmodified version of the pictures. So we'll go ahead and pick one of these. Okay, so we'll pick a kind of more generic one like this one, and the resolution is limited, but it's okay. Okay, it's good enough for what we want to do. I wonder whether this one is also. Okay, so we'll go. This is not the one that was shown earlier. Now one really nice part about the GIMP is you can copy the URL and have the GIMP to download and open the picture in one swoop. So you don't have to do all the other kind of difficult steps. So you can just go ahead and download the picture or copy the URL, go back to the GIMP, and then you go to Open Location, paste the URL, and then click Open. In this case, it doesn't want to do it because it cannot get to it, and that's because it's not this URL is actually created on the fly, so it can only be accessed from the browser. And just for showing what we can do here, I'm just going to do it over here. So we'll copy link address and then do it again. Open location, paste the location. So it doesn't want to do it. You know what? I'm going to go to a different source. We'll go to ARC. Because I just need one picture. That's all I'm looking for. And all right, there we go. And then we can go to about ARC. Trying to find a picture that we can utilize. There we go. Not exactly a high resolution picture, but we'll go ahead and do it. Right click, copy image URL, go back to the GIMP, open location, and then open this way. Still it doesn't want to do it. I guess in that case we'll just have to save it first. So we'll have to go here, save image as, go to downloads, 393 American River College, save it. Go back to the GIMP, point it to the same location, open. We are already in a downloads folder, so we can now open the picture. All right. So now that we have a picture already downloaded, this is a small picture. We can do a lot of different things. For instance, I can do cropping. Cropping means you're only interested in a smaller part of the overall picture. In other words, some of the, let's say the vegetation here, I don't really want it. So you can use a rectangular cropping tool. A rectangular cropping tool allows you to crop just a portion that is somewhat rectangular. Doesn't have to be a square, but it has to be rectangular. And once I have selected it like this, I can go to image, crop, where is it? Crop to selection. And now I have this picture basically cropped. It is now smaller, and I can basically export it again and export it into a different name. So when I export it, I usually just export it as whatever the original name was, and then plus cropped. When you save it as a JPEG file, now remember JPEG is kind of like MP3 for images, which means it's a lossy compression format. Every time you save a file as JPEG, you're losing some of the details in the picture. Okay, so you might want to consider, do you want to save a picture as JPEG, or do you want to save it as a PNG, because a PNG is lossless. Okay. In this case, let's just say that we want to save it as a JPEG. So the quality, the higher you go, the better the quality, but also the larger the file. So we'll just go ahead and pick in 92% or 92 out of 100, and then we do an export. Now the file is exported to the new name of, with the underscore cropped as a part of the name. So this is what the basic stuff you can do with the GIMP, but you can do other things too. For instance, you might have a picture, a wedding picture of somebody, and you find some of the background, to be kind of distracting, but you cannot crop it out because it is actually integral to the picture itself, but it's distracting. One thing you can also do, easily do in the GIMP is to go to color, and then you go to hue saturation, and what you can do is to turn saturation all the way down. Essentially, you're making a colored picture into a black and white picture. Okay? Very simple to do, and yet you can also imagine, when you put these pictures, still pictures, into a video, you can have like different versions of the same pictures, but with different saturation level. And then in the video presentation, you can basically fade one in and fade the other one out. So the saturation is either increasing gradually or decreasing gradually. So that's kind of a dynamic effect you can create using this type of software. Any questions? Yep.
So when you crop it and then you go to print it, is it going to be this little tiny fine print, or can you actually make it like a 4x6?
You cannot gain information once the picture is already taken. You cannot gain information. So you can make it bigger, but then you're just making the pixels bigger. It will be fuzzier. So if you want to get a good print, you really need to start with a high resolution picture to begin. Okay. Any other questions? Now the print resolution in a print world, in terms of print resolution, you want to have at least 150 dots per inch. That's the kind of like a minimum print resolution, depending on whether it's a poster. If it's a poster and people are going to look at it from, let's say, 5 or 6 feet away, maybe you do not need 150 dots per inch. But when you're talking about a 4x6 or 8x10 print where people have to walk up pretty close to see the print itself. This is kind of like a minimum resolution. So what that means is 150 dots per inch. If you're talking about an 8x10 print, you're talking about 8 times 150 in one dimension, and that turns out to be 1,200 dots. And then in the other dimension is 10. So this part is easy. It's 1,500 dots. So you're looking at a picture that needs to have 1,500 by 1,200 dots to give you a reasonably good 8x10 print. Now, if this is after cropping, it also means the original picture has to have a higher resolution than this type of setting. It has to have more dots because you are actually reducing the number of dots in this case. Now, you can also do other things with the GIMP. You can undo. So this way I gain the original picture back. You can go to filters. Now, when you go to filters, we have different types of effects. You can enhance, and one of the most common enhancement that I personally do is called the sharpen tool. In other words, you are given the picture, and what we'll do is we'll magnify this so that we can see more. Oops. Okay, so this is a larger version of the picture, and you can already see this is a low resolution picture. It is a JPEG picture. The telltale sign that this is a JPEG picture are these artifacts around a sharp edge. Do you see all these, kind of like a halo effect? That's basically because of the compression. It's a lossy compression. So even though these artifacts was not there in the original picture, because of the JPEG compression, it creates all these artifacts. So this is what you get when you magnify a picture that has a low resolution to begin with. But the sharpen tool, this is what I wanted to demonstrate earlier, is to go to enhance and then use what we call the unsharp mask, which is really kind of funny because the name implies it's not going to make it sharper, but that's actually what it is going to do. So I will just apply it, and you can see that it's a little bit sharper, and the contrast is a little bit higher. It gives you a perception that it is sharp. It is now sharper than it was before. Okay, with most types of pictures, the unsharp tool works relatively well. It can make your picture look sharper. We can also go to the other tools. You can go to, I got to show you this one too. There's a tool here. Fuzzy select, no, that's not the right. Free select tool. Okay, this is called a free select tool. It allows you to hand select, which part of the picture you want to crop out. So what I'm doing right now is I'm selecting just the building itself and make it, its own cropping. Make a selection out of the building itself. Now this type of tool requires a lot of time because when you have a large picture or a complex object like a person in a photograph to crop out, it will take you a lot of time because you want to do a good job and not include things that really should not be included. But I can show you, after this is all done. Okay, so now I have just selected the building and make it separate from the rest of the picture, which means at this point the building is my selection. I can go to, okay, I need to make the screen a little bit smaller. Okay, so I can go to select and do an invert. In other words, instead of selecting the building, I'm now selecting everything that is not the building. Whatever filter I apply, I'm only applying to everything other than the building itself. So when I go to colors at this point and go to hue saturation and change the saturation to nothing, okay, I want to show you both the picture and also the slider. Can you see what happened? I'm only applying the filter or the effect to the part of the picture that is selected at this point. So now the background, the trees, they're all black and white, but the building itself is actually still in color. I have to scroll down a little bit because the building doesn't have a whole lot of colors, but you can see the post is still red. So this gives you a lot of freedom. You can do a lot of fun stuff with this type of selection, and then apply a different tool to it.
Is this what they do like in wedding photos where it's like the bride and then only her bouquet is in color or something?
You can do it that way too.
Yes.
You can certainly do it using this tool. It's very interesting because the other thing you can do, instead of making the background black and white, the other thing you can also do is to go to filters, and this time I will use the blur filter and intentionally blur the background. So you can see something is in the background, but it's now kind of blurred, and it doesn't really catch your attention as much as the main subject. So you can do all kinds of stuff like this using the GIMP, and then you can integrate your edited still pictures into the video. Do we have any? Are there any questions about what the GIMP can do? Just kind of go through all of the stuff here. Go through colors, go through tools, and also go through filters. And that's between these three tabs. It will tell you what you can do with the GIMP. There's a Photoshop class. I think it's a 2-unit class here. It's a cisa. I cannot remember the number, but that whole class, one single class, it only talks about Photoshop, and the GIMP is kind of like a poor man's version of the Photoshop. So I don't really expect all of you to be able to use layers and transparency and all the fancy stuff, but basic stuff like this, it's not too hard to do, and you can definitely achieve some special effects without having to invest a lot of time.
Can you cut someone out of the picture?
You can cut someone out of a picture using the cropping tool, because whatever is selected, you can actually delete it, clear. And then you can use something else to kind of copy it back into that portion. Yep, so you can definitely crop someone out of the picture.
Well, I mean, I like the person, but for my project, I don't want him in the
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you can crop that person out of the picture, and you can select something else from the same picture and use it to fill up the space that used to have a person. Yep, it's very, the other thing is, if you don't know something, if you don't know how to do something and you want to kind of learn, but I really want to have that particular effect, what you can do is you can go to Google and you just look for GIMP tutorial, and let's say you want to, crop out, a person, so crop, I think that should be enough. Okay, so we have tutorials, how to change the size, make JPEGs smaller, crop an image, and you can even see there are a lot of YouTube clips to show you how to do it. I'll just pick one, and how to crop images in the GIMP. There we go. So it's using the kind of same tool that I was using earlier. It's not the same tool. This one is actually a shape tool. And I'll just go ahead and fast forward. Okay, I'm just fast forwarding.
What is that noise?
It's on the
It's the
video.
clicking. Sorry?
She's asking what the clicking noise was, and when I was telling her it was the video.
Yep. Yeah, it's part of the video.
That's the noise it makes when it does that.
So that's how you cut out a person, but then it becomes transparent. That part of the picture becomes transparent.
Yeah.
And so you're now selecting the background and removing the background instead. So now you have just a person, and now you can stick him to any ballpark, picture of a ballpark.
Or, can't you also how it just has the color background coverage? So I can just go around the person I don't want in there, can't I? Because
Is it
he's
possible?
taller and they're
Yeah.
shorter, so if I just shape them,
Mm-hmm.
and then he'll disappear.
Yep.
I don't really
Well,
care.
but that person who disappears, there'll be a hole, right? In the picture
Yeah.
where that person used to be. So now you need to find a way to kind of fill up that space, and there are techniques to do that. It's just kind of more advanced than what I expect in this class. Yep. All right. So you can find a lot of resources, of how to use the GIMP, to do all kinds of fun stuff. A lot of stuff you can do with it. And before the class ends, we have 3 more minutes. I want to show you one last tool. Now, all the tools that I have talked about today, there are versions for Windows too. So I have links in the Moodle already to their website. You just have to download the Windows version of these programs and install it at home. And the last one I want to show is called Inkscape. Now, Inkscape is really interesting because it is a freehand, it's Adobe Illustrator, for people who have a limited budget. So with this tool, it is designed for people who do draw something. You can use the pen tool. Okay, you can draw lines, and you can use the text tool to type text. But you can also what you can also do using this tool is to import pictures. So going back to downloads and going back to one of the pictures. Okay, let's pick the one that is not cropped. Takes a little bit of time. Okay, there we go. We just want to do a link here. So now what we can do is I can put my picture here. I can resize the picture. And I can zoom in using the magnifying glass. I can zoom into only this portion of my document. And now I can use any tool that I have in this software to annotate this picture. So if you want to say, oh, look here, hey, I can draw an arrow. I can draw a line and then turn it into an arrow. So I can go to, I think, this portion. This one will do fine. So let's say I want to point out the entrance, which is here. So now I can just draw a line from here to here. And I can go to right click and select fill and stroke. And now I can I can change properties about the line. First of all, I want to make the line thicker. So by changing this setting, I can make the line a lot thicker. I can also use the other tool to make it an arrowhead. So I can use the end marker. I can use an arrow, just like that. And I can change the color. I can use any of these tools. So this is a different type of tool. It allows you to draw pictures. But you can also draw pictures not draw pictures. It allows you to do lines and curves and shapes, but you can use it in addition to a photograph. Sometimes what I do for Christmas cards, because my house is usually kind of cluttered, so I'll take a family picture even though the background is really cluttered, and then what I do is I crop out the people, and then I hand draw a background using Inkscape or some other tools, and then I paste the cropped out people onto the hand drawn background, and then I send it out as a Christmas card. It gives you a lot of options because you can integrate something that's real with something that is hand painted, something that's hand drawn. Any questions about this? No? You can also download the picture of a UFO, size it to the right portion, and then just paste it into the sky here. So you can say we just saw UFO at ARC. All kinds of options. All right, so this is an overview of the tools, and when you go to Moodle, you will see all of those tools. Every tool that I talked about today, I think just about every tool that I talked about today, there's a link in Moodle to the website, so you can download the software if you want to. If anyone is interested in running Linux and have everything pre-installed, let me know, and I can prepare the DVD so you can at least play with it. Okay, it doesn't cost anything other than the DVD itself.
I would like one of those.
Okay, I will make one for you.
Thank you.
Okay, so okay, I'll just make a bunch for the class, so that you guys can get the DVD, play with it. If you don't like it or it doesn't work with you, it's fine. If it does work, it has all the tools already installed. All right. So that's the end of today's class. I don't have a homework assignment active at this point because I don't know how I want to arrange to have this type of software installed. They're not installed on these machines, and that's why we can't really use it at this point. But I might find an option to have them installed, just not on the machine that have a network installed. So this way, I can install it in my office, and you guys can access it through the network. All right. Well, you guys have a nice weekend, and I will see. Yep. Have a nice weekend. I'll see you guys on Monday.
Isn't Monday a holiday?
Monday is a holiday. That's right. I'll see you on next Wednesday.
What holiday?
I'll keep in touch, using Moodle.
Veterans Day.
This is an online class after all, so I will contact you guys online.